Hello and welcome to the beautiful headquarters of Bites Bread and Barbecue, located in central Pennsylvania. Today we're going to discuss how to make Italian bread with a Biga. If this is your first time here, welcome. Think about subscribing, it'll really help us out. If you're a return visitor, welcome back. Today we're going to make bread with a Biga. A Biga is a type of preferment that is an Italian technique. The benefits of preferments are that you have a slow fermentation process over a period of 12 to 16 hours, and this causes the release of minerals into the dough, such as iron and magnesium. It also makes the bread more digestible, although it still contains gluten. It is easier to digest and it increases the shelf life. Today I'm going to be using a method that is Ken Forkish method. He is an author of a book that teaches the way to make many artisan breads. And when you think of artisan bread with a Biga, think of ciabatta bread with that hearty, crunchy crust, or a round, hearty Italian loaf. These are the kind of breads that we're striving for. So the first day you're going to prepare your Biga. And as I said, we're using Ken Forkish's method from his book Flour, Water, Salt, and Yeast. These breads have no sugar and they have no fat. They do create artisan breads, and this book is wonderful. It has a variety of artisan breads that are present and recipes that are there. We're only touching on the Biga recipe right now to give an artisan Italian loaf. So we're going to start with mixing our Biga. Now this is going to be 80% of the bread, and we're going to weigh it out. We're going to use the metric system. We're going to have 800 grams of bread flour, 544 grams of water, and 0.64 grams of yeast. This is for the first day's mixture. A Biga is a 2-day process. And when you do this, you do want to weigh it. You don't want to measure by cups, because depending on the humidity and your environment, cups can vary highly. Weight is the most accurate way to go. With a Biga, it's also a 2-to-1 ratio. This is going to give you a stickier dough than some of the other pre-ferment techniques. Now, one thing you do want to do is when you get your yeast measured out here, you do want to mix a small amount of water with the yeast to activate it, and you're going to let that sit for 10 minutes. Make sure that your water is at least at room temperature or just slightly warmer. You don't want it too hot, it'll kill the yeast, but you want it slightly hotter than room temperature. Then you're going to mix your ingredients together by hand to form the Biga. This is going to be a wet, sticky dough, and you can see by the end here it's sticking to my fingers even though they've been floured. You're going to form this into a loose ball, and you're going to cover that for 12 to 16 hours, and you're going to set it aside. Usually this is done overnight. On day 2, we're going to uncover our Biga, we're going to add more ingredients, and we're going to proof, or let the dough rise. So when you uncover your Biga, this is what you see, a bubbly, very aromatic mixture of dough that just smells absolutely wonderful. You're going to take and you're going to add an additional 200 grams of flour, 206 grams of water, 22 grams of sea salt, and 2 grams of yeast. And you're going to mix this by hand again into the Biga, and you're going to form a loose ball. This is going to be allowed to rise or proof for 1 hour. Do this at room temperature, or if you have a proofing drawer, that's even better. The next step in day 2 is that this bread is made in a cast iron crock. So we're going to do 2 things. We're going to preheat our oven to 475 degrees, and we're going to take our cast iron crock and we're going to thoroughly oil it because we don't want our dough to stick to it. Now I have a rather large cast iron crock. The recipe I'm giving you is actually to make 2 smaller round loaves in a smaller cast iron crock. Because I have a larger crock, I only make 1 large loaf. But you got to make sure you coat this thing with oil or the bread's going to stick to it. Make sure you cover the lid. I've done it already where I go to pull the lid off and the whole loaf is stuck to the lid. You don't want that either. So cover it with olive oil or Pam or something, but make sure that it is thoroughly oiled. Now the one thing that I do is I differ from the recipe in the book slightly. He heats the crock to 475 degrees in the oven, and after one rise puts the dough in there. I have found that when I do that, I get a hockey puck for a loaf. So I actually let the cast iron crock come to room temperature or the proofing drawer temperature, and I put the dough in for a second rise for 1 hour. This gives me a nice big loaf. Once that is achieved, I do take the crock and dough and all, and I put it in the oven. You bake at 475 for 30 minutes with the lid on. This holds the moisture in the bread and gives you that nice doughy center. Then you take the lid off and cook for an additional 20 minutes. That gives you this very hearty crust on the outside. Now, some people get fancy and they use scissors or razor blades to cut designs into the dough before they start the bake to give it a characteristic or artistic flair. I just let nature take its course. And once you do this, you're going to be left with a big, beautiful Biga.